Good morning, What's Your Why listeners. We have another episode of the What's Your Why podcast out today with Heidi Greenwood. Heidi is a longtime family friend of ours. She's from the same hometown as my mother, and so our families have kind of always been a little bit intertwined, and we see them at different Roso events or family events. And so I've been able to kind of watch Heidi through her athletic journey from being a D2 athlete in college, or when she started becoming very successful in the marathon and from a distance. And so when I got into running and when I got into podcasting, I knew I wanted to have Heidi on just to kind of talk about her journey. And that's exactly what we did today. Talked about her journey from growing up to now being a personal coach and performance coach. And I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. It's one of my favorites by far. And look forward to hearing you guys' feedback. If you enjoy it, share it, or give the podcast a review. Thank you. Ultimately, kind of the point of the show is get to know you.
Sure.
And then ultimately why you do what you do.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Obviously I know who you are, but where are you from?
Okay.
Give it a little rundown of your childhood.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a small town in northern Minnesota, Roseau, so just on the Canadian border. I have one brother and one sister, an older brother, younger sister, and I grew up in a lot of different athletics. It was always a big part of our family, and so I played volleyball and ran track and played basketball too in high school. And then after high school, I went to college at the University of North Dakota, and I also played volleyball there and ran track. I primarily looked at myself as a volleyball player. That was my main passion. I had considered running in college, as I had a pretty successful high school career in track. But I didn't feel like that was my full passion. I feel like in high school, I put too much pressure on myself, and I didn't really enjoy track that much. Like, obviously, like, you enjoyed feeling like when you win, or like when you're done, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I just kind of had stressed myself out in high school, and so that's why I just like love volleyball so much. It just seemed like more fun. So my intent was just to play volleyball at UND, and then I had talked to the track coach there when I was like visiting. But this was before I actually was at college, and he suggested I just try both sports for a year, and then if it didn't work out doing both of them, then I could just do volleyball. And I was like, all right, like, it sounds like a good deal. So I played all my years of volleyball and also track. I actually ran a fifth year track. I had redshirted that first year indoor season as a freshman. And somewhere halfway through my college career, I really developed a love for running, and just not necessarily like the competition part, but I just loved the therapeutic like effect of running, and it just became, I don't know, more of a passion than I think it had ever been before. And I could tell, like, I still enjoyed playing volleyball and had a great last couple of years in volleyball. But it's actually quite interesting when I started becoming more successful in track in college. So my last couple of seasons in track were definitely a step up than my first couple of years. And so with that, like, my confidence as an athlete, and I guess you could say as a person, just grew. And then that like translated into me having better volleyball. And so it's interesting how everything's like intertwined. And I remember early in my volleyball career in college, like, the coaches always saying, like, they didn't think like I had to have confidence in myself, believe in myself, and like, and then you're like feeling stressed out. You're like, oh my God, I gotta have confidence. I gotta have, and so then like it's something like I have learned over the years, and that like that's something that cannot be forced, and you kind of have to have your own revelation on it, and I'm sure it's very different for every individual person. But I was starting to see like little tokens of like feedback in track and in that confidence part, and then I was just like it was crazy. Like my last couple of years of volleyball were just I was a better athlete in volleyball because I was, the successes overlapped. So I enjoyed my time at UND, and I was in kind of that unique era where my college career just finished when we ended our Division II era. Okay. So, a little trivia for you is, I'm technically, UND's, last, national champ ever in Division II. And so like, cause track's a spring sport. So in 2008, was my my last year competing, and I won the 1500 that year. Okay. And so just kind of a little unique, a unique trivia thing. And then after college, I got into teaching. I did go to grad school at UND, and also started elementary. I was an elementary phy ed teacher for a couple years before I got married. Then I continued to run after I was done competing, and my intent was I always said I just want to do one marathon. And there's a little joke behind it because my college running or track coach, great guy, but he always said that he didn't think I would make I wouldn't be able to do the marathon because I like to hammer things and I'm not patient, and I just like go full bore or whatever.
What were your events in college?
So I started the 800. So in high school, I ran the 800 was more of like my best event, I would say, as a high school runner. And I did the mile a little bit, but mostly the 800 and a little bit of 400. And then in college, I started in the 800, and my college coach actually had to twist my arm to do the mile. I remember the first time I ran the 1500. So in college, then in the outdoor season, it's not the mile anymore. It's the 1500. And I remember like we were at it was an outdoor meet in Florida, and he was like, put in this time like he thought I could do, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know, like. And I remember I went and like did it and hung with him, and I was like shocked. I like automatically qualified for the national meet or whatever the first time I ran the 1500, and I was like just and so clearly I was better fitted for the 1500 than the 800. The 800, I had some success. I ran like I qualified for indoor nationals a few times in the 800, once outdoor, and then I transitioned. I guess my last 2 years I ran the 1500 outdoor. So I think I have like I forget if it's like 7 or 8 like All-American honors in track in between the indoor and outdoor. So 1500. And then I guess I forgot to say backpedal a little bit to college. Since I had that 5th year of track left when I was done with volleyball, how the rules work or whatever, I had one season I ran cross country actually. So actually as an All-American in cross country, the 1 year I ran it, I'd never run cross country before, and then here I am, like 22-year-old. I was asking my friend, like my teammates, I'm like, why are the flags certain colors? And like I guess like one means you turn right at the flag or left or whatever. I don't even remember what it was because, like I said, I only did it one season. But so that was kind of cool. But I could just tell like my strength, like my endurance was growing as I got older, and just probably years of experience kind of building up. And then after college, then I was going to do that one marathon as kind of like a challenge or like to prove them wrong, I guess. And I had a wonderful experience in my first marathon. So actually it was that fall I did the Twin Cities Marathon. It was my first marathon. So it would have been in 2008. And it was actually really crummy weather. It like poured the first half. I remember just being soaked. But I didn't really have a specific goal, a time goal. But I thought like maybe I could qualify for Boston or whatever. And so I went out and was feeling really awesome. And then halfway through, I was like, I think I can like pick it up a little bit. And I ended up negative splitting by like 10 minutes in the marathon. Whoa. And that's like pretty hard to do. Like when so I ran my first marathon I ran was a 3:11. So I was pretty surprised. You know, I thought maybe I could do like 3:30, get under 3:30 or whatever. So that was kind of cool. And then when I had qualified for Boston, then I was under by quite a bit for my age or whatnot. And I was like, well, I better do Boston before I get out of shape, you know? And so then I was like, okay, I'll do. So my second marathon was the Boston Marathon. And that's just kind of like, I always kept being like, oh, it's probably my last one. And I just kept chipping away at time. And I was like, just enjoying the process and, you know, really relatively staying pretty healthy. I haven't really had major injuries or anything. I know, like, I mean, running is a demanding, you know, maybe call it a hobby or whatever. But it's definitely very hard on the body to do it. So I think just genetically, my build is a little bit stronger, bigger boned, or however you want to say it. But I also think too, just the combination of like youth sports of like, I didn't just run my whole life. Yeah. Like I think that can be hard too. I remember in college, some of my teammates that were, you know, middle distance runners to distance runners, they would do cross country and track, and they had done that their whole life in high school. And I felt like a lot of them were all like very burned out, or they just were like going through the motions, where I felt like more eager, like it was new, fun, exciting, because I hadn't just been only running my whole life. I was like shooting hoops, hitting volleyballs and all these things. So I really think that helped me develop into like more like long term, and that I'm still able to do it to this day.
Well, I want to go back quite a ways. It's like your childhood. So Andy's older, correct?
Yep, Andy's.
And what was it like in your early years? Were you wanting to? And so this is like, if you ever read the book The Talent Code, it talks about every, I think it's 7 of the 10 fastest 100-meter dash athletes of all times have always been younger siblings. And so it's like this theory that younger siblings are always faster.
Okay.
And because they want to play with their older siblings.
Yeah.
Do you think that anything like that, or your parents pushing you, had to do with you just having a natural athletic ability, or pushing you towards what some would call like a natural athletic ability?
I definitely remember always like trying to be as good as my brother, or playing street hockey. Like I didn't even play hockey, but like being out in the street with a stick on, you know, the roads are ice. But like, because I was like competitive and wanted to do what he was doing, or his older friends, or playing basketball. Like it bothered me so bad that I, like he could beat me in basketball, and he was a hockey player, and like, you know, when I was growing up, Roseau didn't even have girls hockey, like, and so I knew I was thought I was gonna play basketball, and so I thought it was like my thing, and he played hockey, but I couldn't beat him, so so that was like a thing. But really, I think my parents did such a great job of like providing the opportunity, and like, and kind of letting me take it for how I wanted to, or I never felt pressure that I had to do anything. If anything, I felt always like I wanted to like show my mom I could do it. Like my mom's a very like go-getter. She's just, I don't know. She's very dedicated to the things and works very hard. And so I always wanted to try and impress her, which might sound kind of weird. But I always remember when I finished various things, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell my mom. Like, cause I was like, like, and I know, and that's not saying like my dad wasn't like proud or anything, but it was always just something that I always wanted to, I don't know. Even when I qualified for the Olympic trials in the marathon, my mom wasn't at that race, because like, I mean, I'm an adult. I like going around, and I remember when I ran that time, I like, the thought in my head was like, oh my God, my mom's not going to believe this. Like, I was just like, I was, you know, like so excited, obviously for accomplishing that goal that I had, but that was the first thing that went through my head. So I don't know. I think that it might, as a parent, I have really young children right now, but I feel like that's just like a, a really hard thing for, like, how does a parent like balance, like, you want your kid to be successful, but like having them not feel forced, and just having them like develop a passion for it on their own.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of a tangent, but just I really think that like youth sports today, like it has changed so much in the last 20 years, like, or even 30 years since I was a kid. When a small town where I grew up, like you played the season, like the sports in the winter, you play basketball, then you move to track, then in the fall you play volleyball. Like you did one thing at a time, and then you kind of left it alone, and it's kind of crazy how many different activities at one time a kid is doing these days. Like they're having 2 practices a day in 2 different sports. Like
It's nuts.
yeah, and so I don't know. I mean, I know I've seen stats on dropout rates now in like youth sports, and it's quite alarming. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't have children. I'm not walking that right now with my own children, but I would love to try model what my parents did, and it's like me here saying like I can't really put my finger on it other than I never felt pressured, and it was something that like I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be successful, and like where does that come from? Like
I don't know. I think there's so many different places it come from. It could be like your mom just succeeding in work life and being a productive person. So the model is set that I want to be a productive person, and the opportunities you were given as a child were in sports, and maybe it was, so this is my thing. I'll try to be as successful as I can in this sport. And well, obviously you kind of did that with volleyball and track and field, making it to UND to do those. And being a multi-sport athlete in college is pretty unusual.
Yeah, especially I think even now so more so, just because you're just so individualized, or like in the demands that the coaches put on the athletes, like year round is like crazy.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Are you familiar with Devin Allen? He's a 110 hurdler, and so he ran.
Did he
track.
play football? Is that the guy? Yeah.
He's at University of Oregon.
I
he did track and football, and now he's trying to make it back to the Olympics, and he plays for Philadelphia Eagles. And so, like, just an insane schedule he must have.
Yeah. I mean, now, I think back to I love college. Like, it was such a great experience. My best friends were the people on my team, and who I still talk to this day. But like most weekends, you're on a bus, because you either had indoor track, outdoor track, you had volleyball season, you're reporting to campus early for, fall camp or whatever. So, I mean, I was busy, but I think, that makes you be more focused, or like, I wasn't screwing around. Like I didn't have time to waste, like I did my school, I almost had a 4.0. Like you did this stuff because this is the time to do it. I think that's just, you do it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What was your, like, going into college now? We were already talking about it a little bit, but like, what did your training schedule look like when it came to, when you were in volleyball, was it just volleyball, or did you have to do track stuff as well?
No, I didn't really. The track coaches, they pretty much like left me alone like all fall, and I just strictly volleyball. So that's like 3 hours a day essentially, practice, like strength training. So I did like all like with the strength stuff with volleyball. And then I did run some on my own, like wherever it fit into my schedule, maybe a few miles. And like as I got older, like I like wanted to run every day. It was more. So I think as I progressed through college, I would run a little more during volleyball season. And I do remember sometimes my volleyball coach being like questioning if I should be doing that. I'm like, actually, like I need to do this. Like, like I was kind of at the point how like the psychological effect of like how you feel after you're running. Like, I felt more
There's like nothing better than it.
Yeah. So I felt like I was gonna play a better volleyball game if I like could go jog a couple miles, and clear your head and whatnot. So they pretty much left me alone. And then spring was a little bit different. As far as like, I still did have a couple volleyball practices a week, like their spring season, or I'd do like individuals with like, by position with our coach. So I did do a little bit of volleyball in the spring, but they were pretty like, like if I was like, oh, I can't do that, or I got this going on, or my legs are tired, or like they were very, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if they would let people get away with that, or they were just little bit more laid back about it, maybe. But yeah.
Or could it be that like they noticed that you were a hardworking person, and that like you're still getting fit, you're still gonna become a better athlete by doing your other sport, and it wasn't that you were you weren't skipping practice per se, but you were still getting better in a different way.
Yeah, I think so.
And a different athlete might not be doing that with a different mentality.
For sure. I think it was, and then like even because the lifting so like is different for like different sports, like from a power sport to like running the mile. I mean, there's still like some power and stuff, but I would kind of back off a little bit of the lifting stuff in the spring when my volleyball teammates, they were working their tails off in the weight room. So it looked a little bit different, but I do thought it was interesting. This comes to like DNA genetics and whatnot. Yeah. And then like when track was done, like I focused in the summer, and like my squats and whatnot were better, or, like very similar to all my volleyball teammates, or better, or whatnot, or so like it's like my body could kind of adapt to what it needed to for the task at hand, I guess.
It's probably a very healthy cycle to go through year after year, because like like you were saying earlier, runners just get beat down, and
it's like a catabolic activity, right?
And it's so much like brutality on your joints, I feel like. And my mom passed on some awful knees, and so I definitely like understand like the pain that it can cause, but like volleyball probably just builds it up and like builds up the strength, and cycling through what's more like you said, a power sport.
And I think volleyball is totally lateral movement.
Yeah.
And like running's this way, it's like totally, it complements each other, and like the way your body's moving.
That's cool. That's cool to think about how they go together.
Yeah.
So what kind of mileage were you running for like your college races throughout the weeks?
Yeah. So our program, when the coach was Dick Clay was the head coach there when I was there, we were very low mileage for a college program. Like I did only I did like 40 to 50 miles a week. Yeah. When I was a senior, maybe I got to sneak up to 55. Like he was the one holding me back, saying like, oh, you don't,
Really?
Yeah. Whereas like now college programs, they're running like 70, 80, 100 miles, like, and I mean, I don't know what the UND's program looks like now or what their philosophy is, but that's the coach when I was there. We ran and we were fit and we did track workouts and whatnot, but totally not a high volume program.
Yeah. So you graduated in what year?
High school or
college?
2008.
Okay, 2008. And then you ran your first marathon shortly after that?
At fall of 2008. Okay. Yep.
And then as you slowly got better and better at marathon, did your times like keep going down each race you did?
Yeah.
And so what was your first race where you're like, I think I want to take this like seriously?
The first time I went under 3 hours was my third marathon.
Okay.
No, it was my fourth marathon. And I did it pretty good. Like I think my time was like 3:02 before I ran. So I did Twin Cities Marathon, then I did Boston, and then my friends talked me into Boston again. So my third marathon was Boston again, And then did Fargo Marathon, actually. I've only ever done Fargo Marathon one time, the full marathon one time. And that was my fourth one. And I went from a 3:02 to a 2:54.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I remember running that race and being like, oh my God, I'm running can I do this? But feeling really like I'm seeing my splits, but like still trying to be in tune to my own body.
Yeah.
Of like how I'm feeling. And I felt like I was like, I can do this, or, and so that's when I was like, holy, like I was surprised.
Yeah.
And then I did Chicago Marathon for my first time after that, and I chipped away, so from 2:54 to 2:52. And then we had moved actually to Ohio for my husband's residency. So we had been living, in the Grand Forks, Fargo area, moved to Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
I get super busy with a new job, working at a Lifetime Fitness there, lots of hours. And wasn't really balancing or like juggling, running as much, or it was more kind of random. I was getting some long runs in. And I met some really great people out there that were big into running, and I'm like, this is awesome. I can meet people and run for 18 miles. Like, you can't do that where I'm from, like, because there's not like,
very few people.
Yeah. And so then the cool thing to do is to run like the Akron half marathon, and then you go and do Columbus Marathon, because it's at the end of September, and then 3 weeks later it's Columbus, and that's what people do. And so this friend I was with, running with, or a couple of them, so I signed up for Akron, and then I went to Columbus, and I still really, like, I don't have any records of the workouts I was doing. It was like kind of like shooting from my hip. And so when I like ran that, I was like pretty sure Columbus was going to be my last marathon for a long time, just because like work was overwhelming, and so anyways, I had no expectations, and I just like went and ran, and I ran at 2:49, and I was like, oh my God, the Olympic standard was like, at the time was like 2:48 or 6 or something, so I was like 2 minutes off of it, and I was like, how did I do that? Like it didn't make sense to me, other than like, geez, I have like some gift. Like I can't, I don't know, and so then that was in 2012. And then I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to put that as my goal. I'm going to make the standard. I'm going to make the Olympic standard. And so I reached out to this guy I knew, and I'm like, I think that's my goal. Next year, I'm coming back and doing this same race in Columbus, and I'm going to beat the standard. But I don't know who's going to coach me. I think I need a coach. Yeah. And so this guy I knew, this kind of like a sports agent, but he's like, more of like recreational guy. But he has a lot of connections and can get you into races. His name's Roger Twig. And so I was talking to Roger, and he's like, well, why don't you just work with my son for a while? Like he can put together some workouts till you figure out what you want to do. I'm like, all right, cool. Like that works. Yeah. So Clay Twig started coaching me and writing my workouts. And then we kind of just mapped out a year, and like, this is what the spring's going to look like. I need to work on half marathon stuff the first half of the year, just get like more speed under me. And then we'll be ready. Like, then we'll do like the marathon build at the end in 2013, October 2013. And so then came out that the standard had dropped to 2:43. So like they dropped it like a full 4 minutes from 2012 to 2016, because it was just had that turnover when they re-update the standards. And so I was like, wow, like that's like quite aggressive, like from my 2:49. And so we were just kind of like, let's work hard and see what happens, and see where my training goes, and see what a realistic time is before the Columbus. And so training was going really well. And then before the marathon, before the Columbus that year, we were chatting, Clay and I, and he's like, I think you're in shape to run at 2:45. Like that, your workout show 2:45. But he's told me, he's like, I'm not gonna hold you back. If you want to go for broke and want to go for it, that's up to you when you're out there on the roads. Like, I'll leave that up to you. But your training really shows that you're in about 2:45 shape. And I was like, all right, like, okay, I'm fine. Like, that's good time. Maybe need a little bit more time to progress. But so then went to the race, great morning, perfect weather. And I just started rolling with it. And I kept telling myself, like, I better slow down. I better slow down.
Yeah.
I better slow down. And at the half, I remember going through and I was like at like 120, like, which is like 240 pace. And I'm like, I think I was maybe 121 or something. And I was like, whew, I'm like, I got to slow down. I'm going to die. Like this, like I'm feeling good, but like, this is like way faster than than I think I should be going. But I felt so good. And then, I just like kept going with it. And I ended up running a 242, 242.08. So almost, a 241, so I went from 249 to 240 flat, 242 flat. And I got the standard then, because it was 243. So that was in 2013. So then after that race, started running for like, Wazelle is like a woman's running company. I got a little bit of support through them, which made it kind of fun. And then you had like teammates around the country.
So that makes me Wazelle, same as Kara Goucher.
Yeah.
And so I had just listened to her book as well.
Yeah.
Were you familiar or following her back when you were in your early days?
I have pictures with her at races like Philly Rock and Roll. She was there. We were in the same warm-up area, and we took a picture together because we had like same kits on.
Yeah.
Because like, but I mean, we were like totally like different. Like she was.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes, I'm very familiar, and that's why even Lauren Fleshman has a book that came out. You would probably like it. It's called Good for a Girl. But both of the books talk a lot about Wazelle, and I'm like, oh my God, like I know all those people they're talking about with like Bob and Sarah Lesko and Sally from Wazelle, just because like of my experience working, or just we were at events and stuff, and so that was always kind of like a weird when I was listening to those books because and the Kara Goucher one's bananas, like
it's nuts.
Yeah. And it did really make me proud of like my history with Wazelle. Like, I was worked with them for like 4 years or whatever. And I'm like, dang, like they were really a good company. You know, like at the time you didn't really realize, or you didn't maybe appreciate like just what genuine of a company and the people were. So yeah.
And then you did your master's thesis?
Yeah.
With
interview.
Kara.
Yeah. And so that was before Wazelle. That was only when I was still in college, or like I was working my master's. So that was in like 2009, I think would have been when my thesis work was. So like I got, immediately when I graduated college, I was in grad school for 2 years while I also taught. So I didn't live on campus, kind of like commuted or whatever. But now that even makes my thesis project more mind-blowing after her book came out, to be like, she referenced, Darren Treasures in the book, and she, in my book, which is on sports psychology, my thesis, and she talks about, Darren Treasures, who actually we find out now wasn't actually a real sports psychologist, and then even just her talk about like Alberto in my thesis book, or interview, like I'm like, oh my goodness, like.
So did she like share anything that was like similar to what she talked about in the book?
No, it was very like, I don't know, like protocol, like like very like in. Yeah. So, I was very, it just was talked about like typical sports psychology skills, the things you've learned. So, nothing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
She probably had to keep it. Well, she was under Nike's umbrella at the time. So.
Well, and I mean, it's the book, like, she pretty much was brainwashed. She was like in a cult. Like, like.
The Oregon Project, and that was like the sad thing over the last like few years, hearing all this stuff has come out about it. Like, I've been a fan of running since like I was a freshman in high school, and I didn't like become a runner until like 4 years ago. Yeah. But like the Oregon Project was like something that you like.
It was like a gold standard.
Yeah, exactly. And so to hear like there's so much corruption in it is like kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. Or like I think of that year in Boston when Kara ran 2011 or something, and like Kara Goucher was America's sweetheart. Like everyone wanted to be her. They loved her. She is the all-American girl. And then to hear behind the curtain, she was being manipulated, like just treated horrible. They didn't pay her for a long period of time. And the other part in the book that I was like, oh my gosh, she was doing a 1 mile time trial 11 days postpartum. Yes, like, and she was wearing, insane. Like a diaper, because she's still bleeding down there. And like, and then even the sick things that like Alberto is quoted for saying, like, physically like looking at Kara and making comments on her figure and stuff, like
the plane rides that she described with Alberto were like the craziest part.
Yes,
that he was just mostly just a drunk.
He's like had alcoholism, and it was just crazy that he could be such a successful coach, but like not, or like
like one part of his life is so successful, but like behind a curtain is so low. But so I was, when you posted that you had done your thesis with her interview, or an interview with her, I was curious if you knew her through like racing.
I mean, not on like a real personal level. I had some cool experiences when I was training, like before the Olympic trials in 2016. I spent like 3 months in Colorado. I lived with a friend. She's actually like from Roseau. It was awesome period. But so my husband was still in Cleveland, and I went out there and basically just lived and trained. And I was able to get massage work done like once a week or whatever. And through Wazelle had set it up, who I was gonna see, and like because they were helping with it. And I remember waiting in the lobby of this like small place, and like I hear this voice, and I'm like, my jaw's like kind of like in my lap, and I'm like, oh my god, I think that's Kara Goucher, like that's her voice. And then like sure she walks right out the door, just the bed I'm gonna go, like and like I'm like fangirl her, but I was like, so we had like the same massage person, because she was living in Boulder. She still does live in Boulder, but so that was kind of weird.
Well, that's cool. It's a cool like fanboy moment. So let's get back to like your racing. So you're training in Ohio, and you ended up running at 242. By the way, Columbus in the fall, that's beautiful. And I lived there for 2 years, and Columbus is like the coolest fall and coolest spring I've ever seen. And the marathon is at such a beautiful time. But because like every tree's red. I don't get it. But, but so you moved to Colorado. What was it like to kind of go all in and train with the sole focus of doing that?
So I learned a lot. I learned a lot of growth for sure, and like how I need to function optimally. I found that wasn't the best for me. I was too serious about it, and it led me to like burn out because I was solely focused on that, and the pressure was like totally like self-imposed. Like it wasn't like I had pressure to do this because I had to win money or nothing. It was nothing like that. It was all of just like self-pressure. And so I learned, because I had dropped out of the Olympic trials. So like I raced for a couple years, like on the circuit, like doing different USA Championship road races, la-di-da. And then like I was so done. And I think it was a combination of like, I was wanting to become a mom. I wanted to have a family. And I felt like I was like not doing those things because I was just waiting for this 2016 Olympic trials race to be done, because I had qualified in 2013. And so it was like 3 years of like waiting for this race to happen. So I like was very zoom focused on that. And I've learned that is not best for me. And it's actually not best for most people to function at a high level, to be, we need a balance. We need other things. So I learned that the hard way. Unfortunately, yeah. Like now I can laugh about it and stuff, but I was like, like you go through phases of like being really pissed about it, because you're like, how could I not get my head in a good place to like, finish, or at least get the like finisher's medal at the Olympic trials? Like, no, I quit. I had stopped after like 10 miles because like I was just done. Like I didn't want to do it.
Starting that race, what was it? So obviously, like, emotions were not in the right spot.
Yeah.
Mindset wasn't
Yeah.
there. But looking at the people around you, how much different was that compared to like a normal marathon?
Oh, it was so cool. It was such a cool experience. And actually, part of me like thought that I would be fine mentally once the race started. Like I thought I was like, it'll once the gun goes off, I will stop thinking of like I don't even want to do this. But that did not happen, and it was a very hot day in LA that day, so that didn't help. Just hot marathons are just more mentally challenging, physically obviously, but then the mind is totally the strongest muscle that you have to get in sync if you want to succeed really in anything in life.
What time of year was it?
That was February, but it was like 80 degrees. It was February like 13th. So it was like very hot for that time of the year. And we didn't start till 10:30 in the morning. So sun on cement in
That's
LA.
just poor planning for the marathon, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like Fargo in early May, great weather for a marathon mostly. Unless it's downpouring or super windy. Yeah. But you're going to get like cool temps and it's perfect for racing.
Yeah.
But yeah, LA just seems too hot. I don't know. I think you're not going to get fast times with that.
Yeah.
But the heat can definitely be a huge mental factor as well. So you finished you ended up dropping out like mile 9-10, you said. From there, did you know you wanted to just become a mom from there, or like what was your intention post race?
That I was just gonna be kind of done competitively racing. Like I knew I would still run, but I didn't have I was kind of felt like I was over like pushing myself. I thought I didn't need that anymore in my life, or like I was just I just wanted to go easy jogging, and that's what I thought my running would look like, and I still am running. I have fun now with it more. I think my running looks so much different, but not, if that makes sense. Like I still do workouts. And I love it, but like I feel like I love all the different things going on in my life, because I know that like if my workout doesn't go how I thought it should go or wanted it to go, I'm like, oh, that's all right. Like, and I'm more like can see the big picture, that like it's not like I failed. Like it's my body's just tired. I've had a lot going on, and like it's fine. Like it doesn't decrease my worth as a person, where I think like 15 years ago I would feel really bad, or like I would be so mad at myself. And now I feel like just with maturity and through experience, I've learned that like you can't just be zoomed in on have you read the book Passion Paradox?
I have not, no.
Yeah, I have a few of the books I've read I think you've really liked. Passion Paradox was one of them, and it just essentially talks about how to like have sustained passion. And there's two co-authors, and they talk about like how do you be passionate and not burn out. And then so it's basically like the ebbs and flows of like balance and rest, and like you can't go all the time, you need those breaks. And so I think like I've just learned that I don't know, just I'm more chill about it, and I don't know, but
as like, so coming out of being like a high performance athlete, when you were like trying to be a mom for the first time, were you still working out quite a bit?
I was like pretty regular. I wasn't doing like hard like workouts. Like I was still running like cuz when I was competitively running, I was running like probably 80 miles a week was like where I hovered for like 5 years, pretty very consistently, hardly took time off, which that's bad. I've learned, I should have taken more days off, in there. And now, and then, so when to get pregnant, like I backed off to like 60 miles a week, and like, it was crazy. Like we got pregnant quite quickly. And like, so yeah, I was still running throughout, and it just wasn't like doing intervals or time trial things or anything like that. So
not like Carrie Gotcher's pregnancies.
yeah.
Those were insane training schedules while being pregnant.
Yeah, so just running for fun and lifting. Like, I enjoy strength training. Strength training makes me like just feel confident. You know, that, I don't know. Some people really hate some runners really hate strength training. I feel like the running community is horrible. Like, has a horrible appreciation for what strength training can do for them. They just only want to run. And though I feel like most people, if now they strength train, it's because they've been hurt too much, and like they're like forced themselves to do it so they can run their miles and whatnot. So
I think for the most part, like, I've put in some big mileage weeks and done some stupid races, but like, I haven't been injured like muscle wise.
That's awesome.
And I think it's because I have such a background in doing strength stuff.
Yeah. One thing that I found that's really like, I feel like these last few years, you know, like, I'm gonna be 39 this year. I'm pushing 40, and is just tissue mobility things, from foam rolling to cupping to like scraping. Like, I have like these tools that I really feel like it helps me do the things, you know, like, just because that tissue can get so tight, and like, if it's not pliable and doesn't move, I feel like that's like how the injuries happen. And so my husband and I both have really focused a lot on this last, you know, year of just dedicating that time to like our needs analysis, right? Like, we all have like 24 hours in a day. You can't do everything under the sun. Like, what do you need, your body need to like be successful or to do the things you want to do, really? And like, for me, like, I have tight quads my whole life. I have, you know, and so like, I know that like, I need to work on that flexibility in that tissue. It needs to move, or then I'm going to run into hamstring things because, you know, like, all these things. So that's one thing that how my training has changed in the, like, from now than when I was 30 or even 22. Like, I hated foam rolling. That's like, this is a waste of my time. Like, that's what I would think, you know, and now I'm like, well, I need that. I'm like, my body needs that to function. And so prioritizing that is different now. So
I noticed, like, this last week for me was 60 miles, and that, which was a big week for me. And usually I hover between like 30 to 45. And if I just stretch out my calves at the end of the day, I feel so much better. And I can like walk in the morning. And otherwise, like, I just feel awful until at least noon. But
the calves are so neglected. They are so important. And we just like, we don't give them any attention. And just with all like plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, those injuries, which are so common in the running community. And like, if you think like, if that calf is tight and it's not releasing, that's like so much more pressure on that Achilles or the plantar. So like, using a lacrosse ball on your foot, you know, and then obviously on the calf. So doing above the point and below the point to help it be happy is like, you know, very important. So
when did you start doing your like your training, your coaching? Is it like personal training?
Yeah.
When did you start doing all that?
I first started doing that when I lived in Ohio. So I was like personal trainer and at Lifetime Fitness there. I also did like cardio tests on people, and resting metabolism tests on people. So I did like lab stuff, but I also personal trained too. So that's where I first started personal training. And then after that, we moved back here, and I started doing my own working for myself here. And that would have been in like 2017 when I started, and it started slowly, you know, and now I am pretty busy with just in-person clients and running. And I have a huge passion for Pilates and reformer Pilates, because when I was in Ohio is where I first got introduced to it at Lifetime, actually. And I just could not believe when I did reformer work how good my body felt. I could run.
Is a reformer?
It's like that machine thing, yeah. And so like from like just, I feel like my calves, there's so much stuff you do on it that I just felt like it put my body in symmetry, and like I could run the crazy miles. Like, so pretty much since 2011, I have done reformer work 2 times a week. Like, so that's like last 10 years of my life. And like, then when I moved here, I found a lady here that's awesome. She's currently not teaching anymore. But then I got certified here just because like I like just know how good it makes, that how it just so good for your body. And there's not a lot of Stotts. So I'm Stotts, Stott, that's like a brand or like a certification. And so I'm certified through Stott Pilates. And so a lot of my clients now, in-person clients, come to me specifically for that trade because it's more unique than,
Is that the coursework you were just doing?
That was just a continuing ed one, or like kind of adding on to it. So that was like a mat Pilates part of it. So mat Pilates is, you don't use the machine, you use like props and stuff. But I just wanted to be a little bit more sharper on those skills to be able to teach my clients better and have a better understanding. So yeah, just learning the importance of like breath connection to all the movements, core work and hips, and it's really about like the spine and the way the spine moves. That's like the main, I don't know, focus in Pilates is just like moving our spine in different ways, and that's putting our body, good symmetry. Like so many people, like we're hunched over, so our spine's like this, you know, and so like working that extension and that rotation, and just that can help our body function more optimally. So
are your clients, do they run like the whole gamut of people?
Yeah. I have so from some retired people to middle-aged people, and sometimes in the summer I'll work with a few kids here or there, which can be fun. It's just with my sports background and stuff. And then my running clientele, like I just work with them virtually, do programming, help them with strength work, and pretty much broad range of people there too. And some are locally, some are for other places of the country. I'm kind of excited because I've been reading and studying more on like doing blood lactate testing.
Oh yeah.
And so I want to get a little bit more experience with that on like myself and my husband.
Yeah.
I'm practicing it, and I was like, my local clients, like, this would be so helpful to know, because like training paces are so important for you to like progress your fitness, and like, is your workouts working for you? If performance is your like goal, and if you're not having the right training paces, your tempo runs are too hard. Like your body's not really learning how to like metabolize and cycle through that lactate, because it's just building up and building up and building up, and so like if your distance is a half marathon or marathon, like that's important to know and to teach the body how to metabolize that. So I'm excited about that. There's a guy in town here who's done it quite a bit, so I was already messaging him questions. I'm like, did you order this part, or just to make sure I have all the things I need to start start learning that.
I was talking with Andrew Manning.
How do you know him?
So super weird story, but it will make sense. I used to work at Shields when I was like a freshman in college. Okay. And when I was working there, I saw his name tag, and he was like, "You're from Vermilion?" I was like, "Do you know Lenny Bilberg?" And he's like, "Of course I know Lenny Bilberg. Who doesn't?" And I was like, "That's my aunt." And so then like we kind of just became friends from there. And every time I go there, now I just have a conversation with him. But we were talking last week about running, and I told him that I started running along the river here in West Fargo, because I hate running like north and south right here, where it's like the drainage ditch to Sanford used to be my run, and then up Veterans, like a 7-mile loop kind of. I think it's very boring, and I don't like a ton of traffic. Yeah. And so that's all it's like a lot of exhaust and whatnot. Yeah. So I started running along the river. We were talking about like that route, like over here, it like turns into like a farm. Oh yeah. And there's a random gravel road. Yeah, the in only gravel road in town. Yeah, in the middle of town.
Yeah, and there's chickens or turkeys back there.
Yeah. And then I mentioned that I was running over by Costco, and he said that it's where you're building your house.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I think I may have seen it. And then you posted a story. It's like, that's definitely it. But we were talking that you guys have trained together.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I knew that you guys knew each other somehow. I was like, oh, okay, weird. But he was saying that you guys are doing some training together.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a really cool local person to like test out that stuff on.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He's very passionate and excited about running and training, and I hope we can hook up this summer for some workouts, or like this spring as it gets nicer out. It's hard when you have your work and trying to figure out training times. I often have to run very early in the morning, and sometimes he doesn't go till later because sometimes he works, like his hours are works later, and so then he has to sleep in a little bit, or like not get up at 4 a.m.
I noticed your Strava times are so early.
I know. It's just like go to bed early. My kids are still little; they're not in a lot of activities, so I guess I'm just embracing the period of time we're in. So I turn the lights off and have dim lights on, and it helps me go to bed. And so my husband and I both go to bed pretty early, and it's obviously very helpful that for him and I that have similar lifestyle goals and health habits, or whatever you want to call it, since we are going to bed at the same time. I could see how it'd be like hard on like relationships and marriage or whatever if like one partner is going to bed at 8:30 and the other one doesn't come to bed till 10:30. Like so I'm grateful that like Mike and I have found a system that like works for us. So
he's trained quite a bit as well.
He just he's newer to running. In the last few years he's definitely ran, I mean his half marathon number count is probably to like 6, 7 now. But he played college football. He was like not an endurance runner. He initially got into running after he listened to the book Born to Run. Okay. Like a lot of people. Back in like when we lived in Cleveland, he kind of started. He built up to doing his 4-mile loop, which is great. He had doing. I mean, he was had hard hours, too, with being a resident. But in like, I would say it was 2020, the year 2020 is when he kind of more got into jogging and running. And his fitness has got really improved a lot. He's pretty dedicated. When he has a plan, like lots of people, if you have a plan, it's a lot easier, and you're more likely to want to do it if it's like laid out instead of like waking up like, I think I'll do this or that, or like, then it's like, it can get really off schedule.
I remember seeing him, I think it was the Fargo Marathon that they did in the fall.
Oh yeah.
So it would have been like 2 times ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing him like right before the finish, and I was like, I think that's Mike. And then he finished, and I saw him like. I saw you guys
together.
Did
he do one of the Fargo marathons? I was kind of embarrassed. He did this like crazy, like coming, I don't know, with his hands like celebrating to like get the crowd into it. Like
I didn't see him. It was
finish. Ridiculous.
I saw him, like just after.
I was like teasing him. I'm like, act like you've done it before. But he was just having fun. But yeah.
I remember the first one I did. The first half was like right at the end of college. I was like, this sucks. Like my longest run was an 8-mile run, and right at 8 in the course I bonked, and I was like, this is awful. And then I bonked again at 11 miles. If I didn't have my friend there, I think I would have started walking. So we ran the whole thing together. And that was the year it just downpoured. And it was super windy, and it was just an awful day. And it was like a high of like 40 maybe for the race. And so it was just not a fun day. But I remember it just being like just this brutal experience. And now like doing a half marathon is like nothing. And I've actually never done a full marathon. I've done 4 halves now. And then I've done a couple ultras. But I think it's such the marathon, and Fargo Marathon especially, I think is so fun. Because the thing I hate about Fargo is there's so little when it comes to like fitness and recreation
Yeah.
around fitness.
Sure.
Like in Columbus, there was like local rock climbing gyms that were like outdoors, so anybody could top rope any time of the day. Or there was like running was like a supported thing.
Yeah.
But like I was running, you know, the sidewalks are not cleared well around here, so running on the roads is way easier to run on the roads here compared to like the sidewalks. You get flipped off constantly.
Yeah.
But when Fargo Marathon happens, the whole community seems to embrace it.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good time of the year. It makes me like happy to be around here.
You should do Chicago Marathon.
Chicago?
It's a really good race.
Yeah.
It's like the whole course is like there's like people like the energy, different neighborhoods. Like you should do Chicago. You should.
I really want to do Twin Cities at some point because I watched my mom do it so many times.
Yeah.
And so that's like one marathon I really want to do. But then I'll take Chicago.
Yeah, it's like easy to get to. You know, it's like you just gotta. The tricky part, I would say, just like get a hotel room early. Like know you're gonna do it, and it usually does sell out. So you kind of have to be on it a little bit, like when they open registration. To get in.
I'm sure that's a big race. Though.
Yeah. There, I think it's like 30,000 people, and something. Like it's crazy. Like the amount of people to put on the race, it's quite the. It's impressive to say the least. And then all like the super like elite people you can like see around their area, and like that's kind of cool part about it too.
I really want to have this goal. I don't know how attainable it is, but I want to interview the female and male winner of the Fargo Marathon this year.
Yeah, you should.
I don't know how I'll get their information or anything like that, but I think there's no press towards them.
Yeah,
they do this great accomplishment.
Yeah,
but the people of Fargo, they don't seem to. The support isn't there for them to have like a big interview. Maybe like they're a quick blip in the paper.
Yeah.
But
could do a better job at that, I think, for sure.
So I think it'd be cool to do something like that. But so one thing I did notice that you're doing like a lot. You said it's Pilates.
Yeah.
Does that help when it comes to like your core is so much more built up from that? I feel like.
Yeah. Does
that help long-term muscle or like? You said like keeping your muscles pliable. Yeah. Do you think that just the different movement of doing Pilates is way more beneficial to a runner's body?
It's for anybody. It's for anybody. It's like this reformer specifically, like you have all these like springs and ropes that lengthen, but like you're strengthening. So like I think it's like a recovery tool too. Like there's so much you can like after a hard run, like doing something, getting your legs can be up in the air, the blood's flowing down. It's like, restoring the length that like, when you're running, your strides, like it's the same range, and like as you get older and as you run more, it can get like your range of motion can start to get smaller and smaller. They always talk about the marathon shuffle. You don't pick your knees up and all these things. And so just, I think like I prescribed for my clients mat Pilates though for recovery too, because a lot of the movements, you're doing things like this, rotation, legs are up in the air, doing all sorts of things. So just helping to lengthen, to flush that blood through. I mean, there's like some really great tools. I actually use with a lot of my clients. There's this Pilates guru. His name's John Gary. Okay. He's like he creates like courses for teachers and stuff, but he has a lot of free content on YouTube on like beginning mat Pilates and like 15-minute things. So they're very like doable, like amount of time, like 15 minutes isn't a huge investment of time. And so I recommend that in like the clients I work with, I'll like put that and like do this. And some people become to really like it and notice how it makes their body feel. Some people probably do it like begrudgingly, and then they don't probably get the same effect, because when your mind is saying like you hate it, like are you really gonna embrace it and take the like advantages of it? So I think there's like a piece of that too. But so yeah, I think it's just like a great tool for recovery too, not only just for strength, but
gotcha.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're still pretty competitive, like your half marathons and whatnot. What's your goal with training nowadays?
To be healthy and to have a lot of energy, to be a good parent and be a good role model for my children, and I think it helps me be a good coach too. Like when you're putting yourself through these workouts or like hard, and I do have a coach now. I have a friend that's like helping, or like tells me kind of what to do, where we work together, and it's really helpful. I learn from her, and then I also know like, okay, I can, like, I knew how this helped for me, maybe I should try that with this one client because of this, or so it's really it's a fun process. And yeah, I don't know, I find it so fun. Like I think it's just, your fitness just feels more purposeful, right? Like I'm not trying to exercise to like fit into a pair of jeans. Like I don't even know how much I weigh. I never weigh. It's totally not about physical appearance. It's 100% about like feeling good, giving me energy, and like, yeah, being a positive role model for my girls.
Gotcha.
Like it's like, that's where I think sometimes it can be hard. Some people are so focused on like physical things they're trying to get after with like, when I'm working with clients, and it's like we need to focus on like the process, not the outcome, because if you like the process, if you embrace the process, that's what's sustainable. Like once you get to that end goal, then what? What are your, you know what I mean? Like, so say you get that time, okay, now what? Like, are you fulfilled, or like you're on to the next, so it's just like really embracing that process of like, does your training make you feel happy, or are you just doing it for the, I don't know. I think some of my clients too or like, what if you train for that race and it doesn't go well, and you just invested 6 months of your life to try to do a certain time, and you failed. Like, then what? Like, how does that make you feel? Well, it makes you feel like crap, right? And so I try to pivot like the people I work with and their mindsets of like, the whole process is like and we like celebrate all the wins along the way. That's what it's about. Like, it's about crushing that workout. Like I just texted, like I have a client that's running Boston. Her training's just going phenomenal, and she just crushed her last big workout yesterday. I'm like, you better celebrate this. This is like, go have 2 beers or whatever like celebrate, like, because who knows what's going to happen on race day? You could pick up a virus in the plane on the way there. Then what? Like, like, so like that you have to make sure you celebrate the things on the way and have fun with it. Otherwise, I feel like you're just going to be majorly disappointed. Because in order like to have that perfect race, all the cards have to fall in the right place. And what are the odds of that? Like, I mean, you can have like, the odds can be higher and say like meteor ochre day to like, but really hitting out of the park, like that's not like gonna happen all the time. So how are you gonna like feel good about the journey and like your day to day? Like, so I personally feel good about like having all those mini goals along the way, and like when you crush your workout and like you feel good, like, and it's not about like the race that's in 3 months, like who cares? It's the direction of your life, the direction of the lifestyle of your choices. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like,
I think that's a great way to put it.
I don't know. Have you read Atomic Habits?
Yes.
I've read it a couple times.
Yeah.
For real. I like love that. There's so many great quotes in there, like just even about like the systems. It's not about like the goal, or like it's your systems failed if you like don't attain, or it's all about having that system in place of like, how are we going to be successful? Like, what are the things like you as an individual need to do? And I think like I love that book. I think that book is a good one. The other one, have you ever, what's that one book called? Do Hard Things.
I have not. Who's that
Do
by?
Wait, where? is it called? No, I'm sorry. That is one. But
Okay.
You Can't Hurt Me. Have you heard of that book?
Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me. Have you?
David Goggins.
Yeah. Have you read it?
So like 16 times. Like that's my repeat hard running.
So I listened to that for the first time this past summer, and this first time I competitively raced a Chicago marathon last. It was the first time I like really like competitively trained for a marathon in like 8 years, since like before children.
Yeah.
And so I listened to that book, and my brother told me about it actually. My brother, and he's like, it's pretty hard to listen to, because there are some pretty like hard parts in there, But the key takeaway, like, your mind can do anything. Like, your body can do anything if your mind can believe it. One of the things that, like, the quote, or the 40%, I take that with me forever. Like, when I'm in a workout, like, when you feel like you're tired, it's like, I'm only 40%. Like, you can dig so much deeper. Like, if you literally, like, you can talk yourself into that.
Yeah.
Like, it's an incredible book.
So that's like my go-to if I'm halfway through a run and I'm like dying, I turn on that. And so like I have a tally of how many times I've read it or listened to it.
Yeah. I listened to
because I
my
didn't read
books.
it the first time.
Yeah.
And it was one of those points, one of those books like I love like David Goggins.
His Audible is so good. It's like
good.
An interview-ish kind,
The
or like
podcast / audiobook.
That's what I had. Like,
but then after I've listened to it so many times because well, first of all, his life has been so much harder, and so anything I'm doing is not that bad. So, but his second book,
I haven't heard that. Listen to that one.
It's he goes into some of the same stories, but a little bit more detail, and then he brings his mom in for part of it, and like she reads part of the book, which is like really intense.
Oh wow!
And then he talks about like the Moab 240. It's like ultra marathon.
Okay.
And he like went to the hospital, dropped out, and like went home, and he like just lost control of everything in his body, but then ultimately like fell asleep. Then he woke up in the middle of the night, and there's still like 10 hours left in the race. He's like, I can't not try to finish. So he's already DQ'd because he left the course. But then his whole crew goes back out to where he dropped out, and he finishes the race, already DQ'd, and does it, and he finishes like next to the finish line because he's like I haven't earned the right to cross that finish line because I did drop out. But just an insane human. Defines like what you're capable of if you just set your mind to it.
I like, obviously there's like the verbiage and it's a little rougher and
sure.
stuff like that, but I did really take away of like that whole like aspect of God, you really can can like how strong that mind is. So
no, he's a huge motivator to me, just because ultimately one of the big reasons I got into like ultra running and doing the hard stuff is because like he did it, and it's like this is super funny. This goes back to like my race I did in August where like I ended up in the hospital.
I heard about that.
my mom was like, did we do something to you, or you feel a need to do these hard races? I was like, well, ultimately I feel like you gave me a really good childhood, and that I do this because like I wasn't challenged like growing up, and it puts myself in this point where I proved to myself I can do these things. I don't know, but like David in his first book talks about that. He's like, maybe you've never been like truly challenged in your life, and this is something that like from reading my book you'll put yourself in those things to find out who you are. And you talk about like failures in a race, like end up in the ER, so definitely failed, but I did have those same like goals that you were talking about along the way, like 2 weeks out having these massive training days, and looks a little bit different than like a normal marathon training, but I try to make it a little bit more gruesome on myself. Like that pack right there is like a 40-pound pack that I'll just walk around Fargo in, and Cable and Troy do that as well. They do. It's like the ruck packs. And so it feels the exact same as walking up a hill, like doing a march up a steep incline, and then also feels the exact same as stepping down as you go down a hill, because like you're taking extra pressure into each step.
Okay.
And so that came from Goggins as well. He does these massive rucks. And so, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this past year was the first time last spring, I guess, a year ago is when I had listened to that. First.
Yeah.
I don't know when it came out, but I that was the first time I listened to it.
And so you're talking about the Chicago race.
Yeah.
We got sidetracked.
Yeah. I was very happy. I ran, I did 2:48, 17.
Okay.
In my, I would say like my first competitive marathon back. And I was thrilled. Like I thought I could maybe sniff under 250 was kind of like my goal. Like going into it, I was like, I feel like that should be attainable. And yeah, so I did too. I was really happy with it. I know a lot of people that struggle, so say you ran a specific time when you were like 25 or whatever, and now you're 35 or 38, and people like can't get over like that they're not as good as they used to be, so they don't want to do it, or they're just crippled of like failure, like they don't want to do things like that. And I don't struggle with that. I don't know where it comes from, if it's just like I don't care because like I'm like having fun doing it, where like or maybe is that I'm just embracing me as where I am at right now and celebrating that versus being like, I'm never going to be able to run a 242 flat again. Like, I should just, why am I doing this? Like, I don't think that at all. Like, I probably won't run a 242. Like, I don't know, but like that, I don't even care. Like, this is who I am now. Like, I am almost 40 and loving life. So who cares? Like, like I would have never thought, like, honestly, like in college, if you would have said, Heidi, what do you think your life's going to look like when you're 38 years old? And like, are you going to be exercising regularly? Like, are you like, what's that going to look like? I would have been like, I don't know, maybe probably like 30 minutes a day, like, or like on the elliptical, or like, I had no like ambition or desire, or thought like I would be doing what I'm doing now. Or like I've been into, since I've had children, but getting back into like box jump, like more like explosive, more trying to be an all-around athletic person. And I feel like that's just going to help my running is, focusing on those other things. So I don't think I did that very well, really when I was competitively racing. I didn't really do any like explosive plyometric movements for that period, like, which is kind of strange. Like I did strength training, but I just kind of ran, and then I did basic like functional things, but I wasn't like doing box jumps or heavy med ball slams or snatches, or I didn't do any of that. I hadn't done that since like college volleyball. And then I just started doing that again after having children, and I love how it's made me feel and stuff. So yeah, I would have never thought I'd been doing that at this age. So I feel very happy with with it, and so
cool. Well, I think the last thing I want to talk about is kind of your foundation, and I had no idea it was like a foundation. But until I listened to your last podcast. With Ashley Sorensen. But
that was fun.
Describe the foundation and kind of its cause and.
So we started. So we had lost two of our first two babies. We had lost, and we were trying to figure out how we could do something to honor them, or how could we basically make society better by our experience, you could say. And so we had this idea of doing this event called the Angel Baby Mile, where it's more of like families getting together and can celebrate or honor like their lost children or babies. And so we did that for a few years, and the intent was never to raise money. It was just like an experience, an awareness type of event. And then we did end up making some money, and so I would just donate the money to like other to like a formal nonprofits. And then after a while I was like, why don't I just like have our own foundation, or so I can specifically choose where I want this money to go. And like so when you're collecting money, like how the laws are worked, you just have like an EIN number, just have like formal, so you don't like, that's just how it works. So that's I never started the actual foundation till probably after 4 years or 3 or 4 years after doing like the Angel Baby Mile event. So now we have like the Jules and Lenny Foundation, which is the name of our first 2 children that we lost. And so it's primarily one main event each year is still like the Angel Baby Mile, where people can purchase flowers in memory, and then they're set up along the Fargo race course, a specific part along the course. We've done some other things through the years of like different small like fundraising events, or we once did a virtual wine tasting during COVID, and some different things like that. So that's just a passion project that we've continued to do. And so this year we're doing it again at the Fargo Marathon. It's May 20th. Okay. And we're adding face painting this year. So we have like a big event, there's a bounce house for the kids. We have food. We have mimosas, Bloody Marys. There's a band usually is always at our corner. And that's just creating a really fun environment. Yeah. We're having smoked pork sandwiches, I think, this year too. Okay. So a lot of people that volunteer and help make the event really fun. And so, yeah. Gotcha.
Cool. Well, are you racing?
No, I'm not. Mike and I are not. We have usually raced, and it makes it a little bit more challenging. I have to really delegate to other people, and my mom usually steps up big time. And so this year I decided that I wanted to be there, like during the setup, so it'll be, hopefully we get some nice weather. That always helps. And it'll be on like 9th in downtown, like the residential area, so 9th Avenue and 9th Street South. Okay. So if you're running this year, or are you?
I'm not.
You're not?
So,
okay.
Avetta, she's doing the 10K that day. I think she just got home, and so the dogs are probably going crazy. Yeah. But then my friend's doing the full, and so we kind of started this like running club. Okay. And I started the running club, and I started it with the intent of like that pack mentality. We call it Wolf Pack Running Club. Yeah. But I got the idea after reading like Bob Larson's book. Or the book about Bob Larson. I think it's called Running to the Edge. Okay. And he talks about with like Meb Keflezighi and then the Toads, different running groups, and how their training is so much better when they do it in an environment of like the team boss environment. Yeah, yeah. Just a group of people with similar goals train together. And so 3 of our, like, we call them pack members, are doing the race that day. So I just want to go cheer them on. Cool. And so I've never cheered on a race since my mom ran. Okay. Back like a long time ago, it seems like now. So I'm excited just to be around and be a spectator and cheer them on. Cool. Maybe coach a little bit. I don't know. Yeah. But it'll be exciting. Yeah. Yeah. But I'll definitely like share anything you want me to share on the description. Sure. But if there's anything you want to like throw in there before we end it, by all means, go ahead. I think sounds good. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Alrighty, guys. Another great episode of the podcast. I really do appreciate you guys coming back week after week, or bi-weekly, actually. Not as consistent as I would like to be sometimes. But if you enjoy the podcast, please share it. And let me know what you think. I would love to hear you guys' feedback, and look forward to having more podcasts out soon. Thank you.